Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Psychic Kitchen podcast. Today we have Ashley Monique of Awaken.com. Hello, everyone. How are we doing today?
Oh, good. Thank you, brother. How are you, Ashley?
I am doing well. How are you guys doing?
Marvelous.
Doing good. Having a little hydration. Just chilling out.
So, Ashley, tell us a bit about yourself, how you got started, etc., if you don't mind.
Sure. So for myself, I'm going to use terminology that I'm sure we're all very familiar with. I essentially became very aware when it comes to the spiritual aspects in the last 5 years or so, and I really kind of dived deep into that. And I am now a psychic mentor, as well as a past life regressionist. And I focus on teaching through experiences. A lot of us have different learning styles. And for myself, that is actually one of the easiest ways I learned was through actually experiencing, right? I can show people better than I can tell them. And I also do a lot of focusing when it comes on working with spirit guides, because not a lot of people understand that they've always had spirit guides and how they can work with their spirit guides. And that was one of the foundational pieces for myself throughout my own journey. And I also work with guiding individuals through astral travel. I think a lot of the spiritual stuff, especially for those that are kind of new, there's this overthinking process, and I think it's a million times harder than what it actually is. And I like to pull them kind of out of that. I like to kind of get them out of their own heads. And the easiest way to do that is to take them through an experience.
That's a great point about thinking that it's harder than it is, because I feel like we look to sensationalize everything and we want the grandiose experience, when a lot of the time it's just simple stuff that we perhaps don't even notice, or perhaps because something amazing is not happening per se, that we have an idea of what it should be like. It doesn't mean to say nothing's happening. And astral traveling, I mean, it's kind of, I feel like it's kind of well known that we astral travel when we're asleep. But do you find that people astral travel during their waking hours as well without realizing it, maybe?
I believe that it's actually possible, depending on what they have going on as an individual with their own abilities and their own experiences, for them to be astral traveling and not intentionally meaning to. But there's also ways to astral travel intentionally, for that to be the intention, and to have an actual location and a goal, essentially, when it comes to it. And that is something that I actually work with people on. And when it comes to astral travel, it's really interesting, because I know a lot of people, I'm sure, have heard that we do it naturally when we sleep. And that's the thing, is it's one of the most natural, at least in my opinion, it's one of the most natural things that we do. Because we do it essentially before we're even born here in the physical. We do it to get used to the vibration difference, right? The vibrational difference between being just energy and making that transition here to the physical, where the vibration is a lot lower. So we have to kind of get accustomed to it or adjusted to it. So we do it naturally. Extremely easily.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of it like that before. About before we can't come here, we astral travel here to sort of get acclimatized, almost, like say.
Like back and forth. While our moms are pregnant with us, essentially, we're not always present here. We actually go kind of back and forth.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
I remember when my mother prayed for me. I don't know where I was. I guess it would be Source. But I was like, that's where I need to go. And I just remember that's where I need to go.
Interesting. Do you remember kind of coming and going, or just that you were just kind of?
I was like high up on. It's like I was looking down, and I looked down, and I was like there. I heard her, and I was like, "That's who it is." And that's what I remember. That's all I remember. And then it was like, boom. Like the astral realm to me doesn't. I don't know. I think with me, I just straight shot places. I don't know if I even go astral. I've never been sure on this, but like I just go from one place to the next. It's almost like I open a door or a portal. So I don't know if I go through the astral realm. I've never been sure of this. Does that make sense? Like I go from one point to the next. So like if I go into someone's room, I just go into the room. I just jump here, jump here, jump here, jump here. Does that make sense?
That's actually, yeah, it's very interesting. So even when it comes to like the astral travel piece of that, I myself, I'm using portals. So from my perspective, like the portal is literally like a bridge, if you will. Like you have like, you know, the physical and you have wherever you're headed. And then like the portal essentially is like an opening, and it's like the bridge between the two to get you there.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
Going to like other realms and other dimensions, right? So heaven, for an example, which I find that very interesting, because a lot of people talk about heaven being like a state of mind, right? Which I think we can have a Christ-like, if you will, state of mind, or a divine state of mind. But as far as like heaven's an actual place, like I've been there numerous times. I've taken people there. You know what I mean? So there's places like that. The Akashic Records is a place that I take people to. And then we have like more of the mystical, if you will, the dragon realm and the fairy realm. So we have mystical beings and other places of that nature too. And you can access them for multiple reasons. If you're just curious and wanting to explore, but you can also work with these beings as well for your own purposes, whatever you're doing essentially. And there's also the healing aspect. So a lot of the focus, which again, this is what I like to teach, right, is teaching people how to use their abilities so that they can heal, right, and become empowered. A lot of that healing, at least from my experience, is focused around inner child healing, because a lot of people have trauma and situations that did occur while they were a child, right? So the inner child healing piece, accessing the dragon realm and the fairy realm definitely helps with that.
Oh, right.
Have you ever run into like a dragon king or a fairy king? I've only had this happen a few times, but with certain clients, I don't know what they are. They're like kings of whatever realm, and there's queens. But I've run into them a few times, like a dragon king, a fairy king. I don't know what they are.
No, that's very interesting. I haven't had interactions with kings or queens. I'm sure they exist. I feel like these are very intelligent mystical beings, and they have their own culture and like their own, you know, like when it comes to their own communities even, right? So I haven't personally had interactions with them, but I don't doubt that they exist for sure. I mean, can you describe like those experiences?
They just look like kings on thrones, and usually the client talks to them. I've only had it happen like 5 times or something.
Only 5 times.
But usually the client talks to them. I remember my friend years ago when he was freaking out. I had to take him up. He didn't really understand what I did until I did it with that. But he went and talked to like Krishna, but it was almost like a king on a throne. So I don't know if it was actually Krishna or his interpretation. But I've seen a lot of thrones, but I don't always know what the beings are. I just know where they're at, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's hard to decipher exactly what they are. I think they're rulers of their domains, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel like it's, rulers, kind of just who's overseeing the other beings in that realm. Yeah.
They have their legions. Hey, Bernadette. Bernadette says, I've had conversations traveling that felt so real. I had to check my phone to see if I had read a text in the middle of the night. Short conversations like family messages. And that sort of brings up a question. the purpose of astral traveling is that, I mean, like you mentioned when we started about coming to Earth backwards and forwards to get hypnotized, but is it also to speak to other souls or what have you, to get messages and just to interact, or do they always have a purpose, or is it just fun sometimes?
So I actually think it's a combination. I think there's all types of stuff taking place in the astral. I think that for some people, so the astral itself, right, is like it's the in-between. So it's like in between the physical, like here, right, and then like the spiritual, right, or the spirit realm or world or dimension, depending on how you word it, right? So with that being said, it's like this space where you can meet with other types of beings, past loved ones, your spirit guides, right? So a lot of people, when they're there in the astral, they can be receiving the messages like you had mentioned, if they need guidance or clarity or support, whether from past loved ones or higher beings. They could be learning. They can actually be learning on a soul level, different things that they need to be learning. So working with their teachers and mentors and things of that nature in that type of way, if that makes sense. They could be meeting up with others. So other people that are also physically here, that are also they're astral traveling in that space, they could actually be meeting up with them for whatever reason. It could be just they're hanging out or they're doing something together. And then you actually have like certain people. I can't necessarily say that it's everyone, but I know that certain people do kind of fractal, if that makes sense. So they kind of go into pieces, essentially, and they're doing multiple things on the astral, like multiple things. And I find dreams very interesting. Like I'm sure that there's a lot of different studies and things to back up dreams. I personally don't believe in dreaming. I think that as soon as we close our eyes to rest our physical body, that we are out doing all types of stuff, for sure.
Yeah. Do you remember your sort of your experiences whilst you're asleep?
Pieces here and there. So I've actually been told that I am one of those people that will kind of fractal and go to several different places, essentially. So sometimes I remember like little, I'll call it snippets, like little pieces of certain things, like having certain interactions and remembering certain energies that I might be engaging with, essentially. But 90% of the time, to me, it's a blank slate. I close my eyes to rest. There's nothing, and I open my eyes when I'm awake, right? So the whole time that's happening, from my understanding, like I'm just doing all types of stuff. I'm just traveling. Even galactic beings are involved with that too. Just doing all the things. And a lot of people experience waking up and still being extremely groggy. And even with all the caffeine in the world, they're not really kind of waking up and getting their energy back. Kind of loopy and out of it. Usually if they're having that experience, it's not something that's just physical. There's an energetic aspect to that. And even though their body might have been resting, their spirit wasn't. They were doing a lot.
So the spirit kind of has place. Would you say that the spirit places a drain on the physical body?
Yeah, I think it can for some people. I can't, definitely for a lot of people. And even though like we're talking about, I mean, yes, the sleeping aspect and going to bed at night for the most part, when people can sleep at night, but this can also happen when you're taking a nap in the middle of the day. It can happen. It's happened to me when I was meditating outside one time and I happened to fall asleep and I was just gone, you know? I also believe that from my personal experience and the other things I've talked with my clients about, that when we have these moments with sleep paralysis, and I'd love to hear Thomas's opinion of this, but the sleep paralysis and starting to kind of wake up, right? Like their eyes are open and they can't physically move their bodies. My personal experiences, I've literally been able to feel my energy kind of entering, like coming back. And my eyes were open at that point, and then I couldn't move my body for a few seconds. And I was very aware of, this is what's going on. You're okay. We'll just wait till we can move again.
That happened. It's only happened to me once that I can remember, and it was strange. But there was a sort of a calmness after the initial sort of half a second of panic. It was like, everything's all right, I'll be fine. So yeah, I was just about to ask you about sleep paralysis, funny enough, but I find that interesting.
I just one time I had to be 22. But I was frozen for about maybe 2 minutes.
Blimey.
And then when I fell asleep, it was like some off day. And then when I got up, eventually, like it was like one leg after an arm started waking up. And then I looked in the mirror and I saw myself as like an 80-year-old or 90-year-old man. And then I freaked out because I was like 22 or 23. And I ran to my friend's house. That's all I remember. That's the only time like I've had like sleep paralysis that I can remember.
You say you ran to your friend's house?
Yeah, I was like, this is crazy. Like none of this makes any sense. I'm getting out of here. I was afraid something else would happen. So I was like, this is nuts. I can't deal with this. Yeah, so it's like when I had a QHHT session, you talk about people going to different places. But I kind of did this one on purpose. I had a QHHT session and I was in the angelic realm. I was staring at the person in front of me where I could hear them. And I jumped in a pool full of sharks also at the same time. So every time they've done a QHHT session on me, like I do something crazy. The other time I battled a dark version of myself. Like he was trying to kill me, and I was trying to, and I was like, you can't kill me. I'm you. It's 2024. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, why are you so light? And I'm like, why are you so dark, asshole? But he was like trying to kill me. He kept coming after me. And he was black, and he had like black energy. And then I was like, he had a black circle around him, and there was like black everywhere. And I was just like, I just make light. Like, you can't hurt me. I'm you. So I don't know. Every time I get a QHHT practitioner, they kind of freak out with me. They're like, what on earth is going on?
I mean, kind of hearing that experience, like the term that's used most often, I think, or at least definitely used very often, is shadow work, right? Inner work, our inner demons, our shadows. It's almost like when doing that type of session, like you were really dealing with your shadow. Like it was you, and it was presented as dark, and then you were battling it. So to me, like there's all types of information in that experience, right? It's also about duality, universal law, right? So if you are as light as you are, there has to be aspects that are that dark, right?
Yeah, Josh says, could be killing your old self.
I almost feel like I was battling with a version of myself from a past lifetime. It was really, really dark and like full of power. Like he tried to cut my neck, but he couldn't. I was like, you can't hurt me. Like I'm you. But he like kept trying to do stuff, and then I was just like, well, if you're gonna keep attacking me, I'm just gonna protect myself.
Yeah, why not?
I was like, you can't hurt me. Like it's impossible. So yeah, it was pretty weird. I don't know. Those QHHT sessions are strange to me. Quantum healing hypnosis technique.
Actually, I just want when we talk about heaven, obviously you spoke about it earlier, and it's kind of the general I don't know, consensus is that heaven is up there, shall we say. Do you, and that may just be because we need a sort of a point of reference, because we're used to dealing with directions and everything like that. We don't necessarily have the concept of it being everywhere at the same if you see what I mean, or just at a different frequency or a different dimension. We have to put it in a place, and we have to say, we have to be able to point to it, because that we're in that physical reality. But do you find that heaven is up there, or is it somewhere else? How do you view it, as in where it is? Is it just a state of mind? Is it kind of all around us? How do you view that?
That's a very interesting question. So during the actual experiences, so like myself traveling there and taking others there, to me, it feels as if there is an upward motion, right? Like there's this upward motion of our consciousness, essentially, at least a portion of it, leaving our physical and moving up through different, through the astral, through different dimensions and spaces. That's what it actually feels like. As far as like my beliefs, like I believe that things are just a different frequency, and that we have our base frequency as individuals that we can essentially manipulate, right? Like intentionally, we can raise our frequency or vibration. Sometimes it's lowered, usually not on purpose, not intentionally. But I do believe that there are other dimensions that are kind of layered on top of each other that just have different frequencies. And people, depending on their state sometimes, right, when they're experiencing different vibrations, are able to like peek in naturally without traveling necessarily into those other dimensions and those other realms. And that's why we see different things, even when it comes to social media, different videos of different mystical beings, or they're sharing their experience, and it to them, they're not quite understanding that, yes, this is the physical, but there's also all these different layers with different frequencies, kind of just stacked on top of each other.
Yeah, it's almost like you can get photography that captures people's aura. So it's almost like that, because the aura is giving off a certain frequency, and the cameras are adjusted. I don't know how, but they're tuned to pick up the energy given off by the aura, and there's different colors, obviously. So it's kind of like on that base, sort of works like that, if you like. It's just a different frequency that we can't perceive with our eyes, or some can, obviously. But it's about tuning to the correct frequency, I guess. But
yeah, and also like being able to like use your intuitive abilities and like understand, and the more that you practice and the more that you learn and develop and grow, you're able to access certain things like that a lot easier.
Yeah. Another question. Have you, we were talking about astral traveling. Have you ever astral traveled to Antarctica?
No, nope. I won't touch it. I won't touch it. As of my personal opinion of what I believe takes place there, not so good things. And also the guidance of Thomas and his opinion. I trust his opinion when it comes to that space. So I won't touch it. I won't touch Antarctica. I won't touch just certain areas that are not safe, because they also work with individuals that have an awareness or abilities as well, in my opinion. So I don't.
There's like an army up there, Jimmy.
I know.
Of government people from all over the world of psychics. Like, I don't think people were there like, we don't want to know about the ice fall. I'm like, well, then go travel up there and look at it. Because there's probably a bunch of beings up there too that don't want you to go up there either.
Exactly. Right. Mercury retrograde. We spoke about that just before we came on. How do you view that? Because I don't study that kind of thing. I don't really know much about it. So would you like to just sort of explain to us kind of how you view that phenomenon?
Sure. Yeah. So there's a lot going on when it comes to our planets, and a lot of the planets are tied to certain aspects that we experience, right? Mercury retrograde is a really interesting one, because I think a lot of people, it's almost very comparable to like using tarot and getting the Tower card, right? in certain aspects, where they have certain experiences that are known to be affected when we're in a retrograde period. So essentially the planet has slowed down to where it even appears as if it's going backwards. And there's certain energies that come with that or have an impact. Communication. So communication with others, miscommunication is definitely a big one. Different technology, electronics acting up, just like out of nowhere. A lot of things coming up from the past. Most often they talk about their exes, like ex-partners, ex-girlfriends, ex-boyfriends, kind of making themselves known and reaching out and trying to rekindle certain things when it's not good for anyone, essentially. But also just like past emotions, past thought patterns. It's a time to actually, people freak out about it. So they start talking, they start talking smack about it, and it's very like cringy for a lot of people. But when you actually embrace like what it's meant to be doing for you on a human level, it's meant to slow you down. It's meant to make you kind of take pause and reflect on yourself, reflect on your relationships and your goals. It's meant to give you a time to rest and actually kind of take care of yourself. So I think self-care is really important when it comes to that. And when you, and also realign yourself, right? So I do want to mention, if you're talking about kind of the reflecting piece, as you're doing that process, if you need to realign yourself with new opportunities, new people, you can definitely like make that change at that point. But regardless, it's not really cringeworthy when you work with that energy versus resisting it or going against it, which is where a lot of the chaos can happen. I say dumpster fires because that tends to be common when people are resisting. When you work with the energy, you can actually benefit a lot on a very deep level. And regardless if there's an awareness or belief of it, like energetically, it's still taking place. It's still taking place. So,
all right, cool. Got any questions?
Jimmy, I'm not an astrologist, my friend.
Yeah, no, neither am I. I was curious. Is it just Mercury? Because whenever we hear about a retrograde, it's always Mercury.
No, there's Pluto, there's Uranus, there's all those planets.
I don't know if they feel left out because they don't. Mercury seems to be the one that gets all the attention.
Yeah. And that for good reason, right? So like Mercury has a lot to do with the things that I just mentioned. And I feel like a lot of humans, for the most part right now, tend to really focus on those areas. Like it's very noticeable, right? When your electronics, when your cell phone's acting up, it's very noticeable when your ex reaches out, and things of that nature, or communication is just completely chaotic. So I think that those are like the most obvious, but all the planets definitely have a connection to multiple areas in our life. And when they are going through retrograde, there's definitely experiences that we have as well. And I'm not an astrologist either by any means. It's just Mercury retrograde I have a lot of experience with, even before kind of making that transition to working with the energy versus against it, for decades at this point, right? So I like to definitely bring up that it has a lot to do with your mindset. If you know we're going to go into retrograde and you're already thinking, oh, hell, here goes my month, you know what I mean? Then, I mean, yeah, your experience probably isn't going to be a positive one. But if you look at it differently, and again, like you want to work with the energy instead of against it, you can have a different experience, and you don't have to know much about it. I think it's more like those like bullet points, you know what I mean? Like your ex is reaching out, don't talk to them. Give yourself plenty of time, even when it comes to travel. And I didn't mention that earlier, but giving yourself plenty of time to travel. We tend to rush around, you know, and not give ourselves enough time to kind of ease into certain situations. This is a time where you would want to do that, you know? So yeah.
Do you feel like it affects everyone regardless of whether they believe in it or not?
Yeah, 100%. And it's the same, in my opinion, it's the same thing. I mean, when it comes to all of the intuitive abilities, all of the mystical beings and the higher beings, like that's all real. That all exists regardless of your own belief system. Like how you interact with it is going to be drastically different, right? Depending on what you believe, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Interesting. But I guess it depends. Like belief systems obviously do play a part in certain aspects, but I guess you could take Mercury retrograde, for example, and if you see it as this bad negative thing, then you're going to have a bad experience with it because you're going to think that everything's going wrong and the world hates you and all that kind of stuff. Whereas if you think, well, what's this going to show me, and then take the experiences or the instances that come up, and you think, right, what's this? What's this trying to show me? How's this for my benefit? Then you can have a positive experience for it, even though it gets a lot of bad press, if you see what I mean.
Exactly.
And I think it's the mental mindset of people. I don't think anyone's really teaching that. So if everyone believes the world's falling to pieces, like riots and wars right now, I feel like the more people focus on that, the more it makes the energy keep going in different directions. Like it makes those energy keep continuously going around and around and around and around because they're so focused. It's kind of why I post these crazy things on Facebook. Sometimes it's caused drama, but sometimes it's just to see people's reactions. Because I want to see how, like, it's like they're arguing over a swimmer. They're arguing over this. I'm just like, are you politics? I'm just like, you realize you're causing part of the problem, right? And by me posting it, maybe I am too, I'm hearing. But the point is that I'm trying to make a point that people are brainwashed and they don't even know they're brainwashed.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. People are very interesting. They definitely are, because they tend to be oblivious to what is actually taking place. So I do agree with you. And when it comes to a lot of that, from my perspective, I have my own feelings about it, but I'm also very impartial to it, right? So it's like I can literally hear something or see something, and I almost find a certain level of humor behind it because it's kind of ridiculous what's happening in the world right now, honestly. Yeah. And so many people are just supporting causes and ideas, and they have no idea what they're actually supporting, right? Yeah. It's baffling to me. Human nature is definitely very interesting.
Well, I mean, the CIA and all these different governmental agencies have done so many experiments on people. Whether it's been the Tuskegee experiments, like the Harvard experiments, Stanford prison experiments, just to see how they can manipulate people. That's what I find so interesting. Even when different political parties get behind different, like, huge TikTok accounts, and they pump out that stuff, and people like, I mean, people that gravitate towards that go to it, but I don't think they're going to convince anyone to vote at this point. I don't think I think everyone is like already made up their mind. But at the same time, it's like I ask a simple question over and over again to everyone about any political party. I go, explain to me in the next 4 years how anything's going to change. Because right now no one can answer the question. It's like a baited question. But I'm like, explain to me how they're going to change anything. And then they start going into how amazing the person is. I go, that's not what I'm asking you. Or they insult you. I'm like, that's not what I'm asking you either. Or they threaten to hack your website. That was one of them. So anyways, they get really upset when you message them on Messenger about it too. Anyways, but the point of it is like we have like right now there's riots in the UK. I don't know, Jimmy, if you can speak about that. Then in Venezuela, they got stuff going on with the election. I think they got riots over there. And it's like craziness.
Yeah.
It is rather. I mean, there are riots going on in the UK, although, I mean, I just observe. I'm not getting involved, just because I feel like there's a manipulation going on.
Yeah.
People are being ready to fight each other when their focus is being put on each other rather than who are the ones actually instigating the fighting in the first place. It's like that an analogy. Put red ants and black ants or something like that in the same jar. They'll leave each other alone, but as soon as you shake the jar, they'll start fighting each other, and so they're focusing on each other rather than who shook the jar, sort of thing.
Exactly.
So I see that, and I think if there's a time to get involved, then I'll get involved. But at the moment, I feel like the focus is on the wrong party, shall we say, the wrong group of people. So, but I guess I was thinking if someone likes arguing, then they must be in seventh heaven at the moment, because you could go anywhere and find someone to argue with, because everyone's up for arguing. Well, the majority of the population are up for having an argument, because everyone thinks that they're right, and everyone thinks that they know everything, and everyone thinks that that they have the answer and everything should be done their way. But we don't really necessarily know anything. It's just all opinions at the end of the day, and we haven't as yet learned how to get along without forcing our opinions down someone else's throat. So I don't know where it's going to go.
And they're really afraid to get on camera. People love to talk on the internet, but when you try to put them on camera, they never want to go. I've had people literally jump from 5 different accounts to harass me because I called them out in a post, and then went to their messenger and messaged them because I'm an a-hole. And I'm like, let's go live on camera. And they're like, oh, blah, blah. Like, they just keep trying to insult me. And I'm like, the second you insult me, you've lost the entire intellectual debate. Mm-hmm. Because it shows me that you cannot in any way, like, if you have to go to fighting, because I was like, if we put this on camera and you talk like that, this is going to go viral. You're going to look like the dumbest person on earth, screaming and yelling at me, where I'm like, I don't even vote for anyone. So why are you yelling at me? Explain it to me, break it down. Why is this politician going to save everyone? Break it down for me. People are so involved in tribalism. And it's like,
do you think Mercury retrograde is sort of instigating all of this? Or is it just how things are?
I think that, maybe a little bit, because the energy is present, right? But I think that from what I've come across, because I'm not an astrologist, but I do dibble and dabble in a lot of different things. What they're saying is that it's actually more to do with Pluto, I believe, than it is Mercury, in regards to the big picture, right? So not so much people because people are very angry. People are mad, and they don't even necessarily understand what they're mad about. At least in my opinion, they're just aggressive and angry. In general, I think that a lot of humanity is angry, and there's a lot to be angry about, but I don't think that they actually take the time to slow down and really kind of pick that apart and see where that anger is coming from a personal level. And they'll direct that anger at whoever comes across them, whether it's here right in front of them or whether it's someone on social media, right? And I also believe that when it comes to all the politics and stuff, that a lot of people are programmed or taught, it's a belief that someone has to come save them, right? That there's going to be this magical person, supposedly those in our government or those officials, that are going to, be elected or chosen to come in and save the day. And that's just not how it works. That's not that in itself is a fairy tale. That's not real. I don't care what they say that they're going to do. Historically, they don't follow through. They never actually follow through 100%. They don't, so it comes down to, I think, each individual person taking responsibility for their part in what's taking place, period. Whether it's the political level, whether, it's everyone does have a responsibility, but they're not holding themselves accountable. People are not holding other people accountable, and that's how we've gotten to where we are today.
I even saw the 5G, because I know Jimmy's thing is frequencies. So they were talking about how they published some study where it would affect people's brains, a frequency. Then I saw a video of all these birds, Jimmy, you probably saw this years ago, but they're ripping the wires on 5G towers when they first started putting them up.
Oh, yeah.
Like birds are just flying around, ripping out the wires.
Mm.
But what I find interesting is, like 2 years ago on TikTok, I started to notice this just very slowly. People started arguing. And I'm always looking at patterns. So as I'm looking at the patterns, I'm like, okay, give this a year. And then it became like 2 years. And I'm like, what on earth? Like everyone's arguing. But it like started small and then it kept building. But what I say though is in everyday like walking life, most people will never do anything compared to what they'll do on the internet. Because there's like this anonymity. What they don't realize is even things I've written about, if I ever become famous, dear God, the amount of messages they're going to find about me on Facebook. But whatever, I'll be like, yeah, I wrote it, whatever. But the point is that I've had people unfriend me because of it, just saying what I've written to other people. But the point of it is I'm like, I'll say it in public. I don't care. Like, let's have a conversation in public. And if people really hate each other that much, what I think they should do, and my guides are being funny, is we should put them all in an auditorium and tell them to fight each other. And then put it on pay-per-view. The Republicans versus Democrats to the death. Whoever wins the presidency. 500 on 500.
Is there only Republicans and Democrats in the States? Is there any other? Because
yeah, there's like third party, but they never gain any traction. They can never get on the ballot.
Oh, right.
RFK Jr. ran, but he couldn't get on the ballot. I mean, I think he's on there, but they never win.
Yeah, you never hear about it. Well, I mean, I don't follow American politics in general.
I don't really either. But my father's drilled that into me when I was a kid. He's a political science major. So, like, I studied politics for like 10 years. But it just, I realized when I listened to Republicans, no offense to anybody that's political, like they were crazy. And then I would listen to NPR for like 4 hours. I was like, both of these people are crazy. Like, this is so one-sided. It doesn't even make sense. Like, both sides. I was like, this is, and even talking to my friends who are like that, I'm just like, it doesn't make any sense. Only reason I like Trump is because he's an outlier. That's why I like him so much. I like chaotic people that want to change things, and like Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate, those kind of people, Tony Robbins. But the point is because they're so chaotic. It's like everyone's afraid of them, but they get things done.
Thing is, maybe it's not meant to make sense. That's why people are arguing, and that's the goal, to get people to argue.
That is the goal.
So it's not meant to make sense, because if it doesn't make sense, then people couldn't interpret it in any way that they choose. And that's the secret, is to make it so sort of ambiguous, if you like. And it's the same with maybe it's the same with the education system, because you see comments that say, oh, the education system has failed because people are so dumb now, or whatever. Not my comments. I've seen online people have saying this, and I think, well, maybe the education system is doing exactly what it's designed to do, is to make people sort of stupider, because it makes you easier to control and to manipulate and to pit against each other, because you're not using the critical thinking part of your brain and to evaluate the situation and to see things from all sides. It's just laser focused on one thing. So maybe the education system isn't failing; it's doing exactly what it is meant to do. Teach people about nothing instead of the things that instead of critical thinking and thinking for ourselves. So yeah, just thoughts. But,
Jimmy, we got any crazy comments down there?
no.
Okay, I was hoping we might.
Sorry to disappoint you. But I'll let you know if any come up. Ada says, "Hey Ada," she says, "If I want to work on myself, I use Mercury energy. If I don't want to work on myself, I direct that energy for something else." Which is
oh, okay, interesting. I've never heard of someone doing that.
Interesting. Yeah, and I guess Lionsgate. I don't think we touched on that yet because obviously it's the 8th. Yeah, it's the 8th today.
I was channeling, so maybe I was mistaken a little bit. I feel like it's a Lyrian portal. Because when you were talking about it, I was channeling in my mind. I feel like it's a Lyrian portal. I could go all throughout Lyrian history. Lyrian's a starseed culture. They're lions. Well, yeah, most of them are lions. But I feel like it has something to do with that, which would fall into Leo. Leo is a lion.
What do you know about the Lionsgate? Sorry.
Go ahead, man.
Just wondering, Ashley, what's your experience of Lionsgate? Do you use it purposely, or is it just you actually use the energies of it? Yeah.
I actually channel the energy. So channel and then focus it, not just for myself, but also for others, specifically with the intention to manifest, to amplify intentional manifesting, right? And that can be abundance, which is not just monetary, it's relationships and health and abundance of all things, and in a positive way. But yeah, it's a very strong energy for myself. Like today feels very buzzy. So like I can literally feel energy just all around me. So it is pretty strong. And we manifest intentionally, unintentionally, constantly. It's something that we naturally do. I personally believe that one of the main things that we're meant to do while here, like in this incarnation, is to learn how to manifest and manipulate energy intentionally. So yeah, this time period, because of the energy that is coming through, it can be used to amplify what a lot of people already do in a positive way. So that's how I use it.
And how do you sort of manage that when the energies are buzzing and when you're feeling the vibe, so to speak? Do you kind of get on and be creative, or do you just allow it to sit within you and sort of don't overexert yourself? Because do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it can be exhausting. So for the most part, I focus on essentially just integrating the energy. So as long as I'm not having any reactions to it, like migraines or like pressure in my ears, like discomfort essentially, which is something that I also experience and a lot of people do with all types of energy when it is intense. If I'm not having any physical reactions to it, I just kind of go with the flow of it, right? But if it starts to have an impact on me physically, I actually focus on kind of bringing it in and like literally anchoring it in my physical body, and I feel better about it. But when it comes to channeling it for others, that's all about intention. So it's the energy work aspect of it. And I'm actually offering like a group manifesting process, which I only do during the portals that are that take place August 8th. So today I do it once a year. And now it helps. When you get other people kind of involved in it, it amplifies the energy itself. So you have what's actually taking place with the energy. Then you have a large population, if you will, of people that are focusing on that energy. So it really just kind of keeps amplifying.
All right. Okay. What's the next one coming up? The next portal one, because we've got obviously today's the 8th. Is there the next one the 11/11? Is that one, or I don't know, or 9/9/9? I don't know what they are.
Well, so I find that it's a very interesting question, and it's almost funny, which is why I'm smiling. A lot of people will literally, any date that has double or triple digits, they will call it some type of portal. Whether it actually is up to debate and my personal opinion, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I've seen all types of stuff. The 2/2 portal, the 4/4. I mean, they do it constantly. So
Yeah.
as far as that being the same type of energy, I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think that it has more to do than just the numerology piece of it. It plays a role in it, but it's not the main thing. This has a lot to do with the planets lining up. And if what Thomas is saying, that's what he got, we even have higher beings involved. You know what I mean? It's not just 8/8 and we've made that into a portal.
Yeah.
Well, I know even through Project Looking Glass, this was going all over TikTok. And I know about Project Looking Glass from like 20 years ago. But supposedly there's people in government that are manifesting us into like a more destruction in our timeline. I mean, the government is very highly advanced psychically. They have entire departments of psychics, like every country pretty much does. But that was released through the Freedom of Information Act, this Project Looking Glass. But a lot of people are talking about that. But I don't know. There's so many psyops in the government. I don't know what to believe when it comes to the government.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I don't know what they're up to, so I don't know if they actually put that out there just to start reporting on it to freak people out, make them afraid of things.
To spread fear.
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of both. I think that they're actually doing stuff behind the scenes that a lot of people can't even understand when it comes to that. But they're also intentionally letting certain things out here and there to cause fear. So to me, it's both. They're playing both sides. They're playing both sides. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've always thought, well, not always, but I recently thought if the people, the everyday person could organize themselves as well as what the governments seem to be able to do and all over the world, then things would change and things would be different. But because everyone's obviously by design fighting against each other and they've all got different opinions on how things should be run and stuff like that, then it's just a fractured society. But there's no organization because no one can agree on anything. And so
they can all agree to ban TikTok, though.
They can agree to disagree.
In the United States, well, even in the United States, because I know about politics, 12 people cannot agree on the Speaker of the House, but 296 people can agree to ban TikTok. And I'm like, TikTok's taking the government to court. The Department of Justice put out a whole entire page about what it doesn't violate the First or Fifth Amendment because they're going to court. And TikTok actually got the people who monitor all the data for the U.S. government, hired them to monitor their data, like Oracle and all these big companies. So they really have no way to argue this. But then they gave the brief to TikTok, and it's all redacted. So TikTok's like, if this is a court case, you can't redact what we don't even know what we're arguing. Like you blacked out everything. Like it doesn't make sense. So everyone keeps on TikTok, like news people, all these other people. There's this woman I watch who's a news person. And she's like, but no one knows what the problem is. And I think that's kind of the point. And I knew when an election came that, because this happened last time. Jimmy, I was getting thousands of views on Facebook. And then all of a sudden, within about a couple months, it just started trickling down slowly. I started seeing the pattern. And it was right after the elections. But before that, it was like, I saw what happened. So I was like, this pattern will repeat again. And it's so chaotic. before it happens. And I just find it hilarious that people think that voting for one person is going to change anything. Because it's like I forget his name. Maybe it's Bob Lazar. But
Yeah, Bob Lazar. Yeah.
yeah, they're people. They're not the ones in control. The ones in the politics. Like there's people above that are trying to control everything. So like everything I'm hearing, they're trying to control everything. So you're not voting for those people. I mean, if I did a deep dive, I talk about the military-industrial complex and black ops operations and all this other stuff, but people don't even listen to that stuff. Like they're so focused on just right and left, it drives me insane.
Kev Gonzo says, just like the aliens in Florida? ? Were there aliens in Florida? What? How do you?
Psyop. I'm sorry.
How do you see?
There's a million people in a mall. Everyone has a camera, and no one filmed them.
Oh, that. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like, where's the video for? I mean, if everyone has a camera, you can't tell me the government. Someone would have come out and been like, I snuck. They took all of our phones, but I snuck mine. Someone would have had something.
Or they would have filmed done it live on TikTok or whatever, and people would have screamed.
Yeah, they would have.
That video.
Yeah.
It's very suspicious. But what's your view on aliens per se, Ashley? How do you see them? What are they to you?
Very interesting question. So my personal belief is we're all part alien. I think that we actually have DNA from various types of aliens or extraterrestrials, higher beings, essentially, more advanced beings, not just when it comes to technology, but also with the spiritual aspect. I think that a lot of these beings have went through similar situations that we're going through right now as humans, and dealing with all of this chaos and this anger and this division, a lot of the not so good parts that we're experiencing right now, essentially the crumble of society. I think that there are those types of beings that have had very similar situations. And I also believe that they have been here for a very long time. Whether people can actually see them with their human eyes, see them intuitively, feel them. They've been around for a very long time. The government has kept a lot of stuff from us, and then they started to release some of that information, which I find funny. They released what they wanted to get the reaction that they got. They like to confuse people when it comes to the government piece, in my opinion, like that confusion and that chaos. It definitely does what they intend for it to do. And they, unfortunately, have used aliens or extraterrestrials in such a way to cause that confusion and even fear for a lot of people, because they don't understand that we're actually related to them. Essentially, we are them, depending on your level of understanding. So a lot of people have interactions with those beings, whether they realize it or not. It's not just about being abducted and that whole piece. I think that there are extraterrestrials actually help us a lot, like support us with our own journeys, especially with what we're experiencing right now all over the world.
Yeah. And because I hear that people say that the clouds are actually cloaked ships and stuff like that. I don't know, maybe you can see
some of them. I believe so. Like psychically, I can look at the sky and actually tell like what is actually up there. I personally can. I think others can too if they were to try.
Yeah. And people will take photos of the clouds, and then they zoom in, and there's a kind of a electronic circuitry pattern or something, or a grid or whatever in the clouds or something like that, whether that's a ship or whether it's actually some kind of ceiling or what have you. I don't know, a hologram or whatever. But it's interesting. Without a doubt.
I don't know if all of that is necessarily real, right? Because we have people that just manipulate certain photos, certain videos, just to do it, just to be kind of be a jerk. You know what I mean? To get reactions out of people. I think that there has been certain things captured, but it's part of that confusion, that chaos, right? It's trying to actually decide what is actually real versus what is someone just messing with stuff. You know what I mean? It's a combination.
There's a good opportunity to sort of, I don't know, to use your discernment and intuition, I guess, isn't it? It's a sort of an invitation to do that. But we're coming up on, well, just gone past the hour mark. Got any more questions for Ashley, Thomas?
No, I still got to change rooms, my friend.
Okay, cool. Ashley, thank you for coming on. It's been fun. And it's been really interesting. Do you want to just remind us where we can find you and everything? Yeah,
definitely. So I want to thank you guys. I've definitely had fun as well. So my website, I can actually be found at awakened.com. That does have the digit 3 in there. It's a little play on, intuition and psychic stuff. But yeah, you can definitely locate me there. And yeah, thank you guys.
No, good. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for watching and listening, and we'll see you all next week.
Yes, we will.
Take care, everyone. Laters.